Bonjour mon ami, j'aime un torrent du Provence, du Québec. J'aime parler un petit français. I'm joking, obviously. I don't speak that much French. That's about the limits of my French abilities. I can speak in simple sentences, but not really enough to carry a full conversation. I just wanted to... I'm taking a quick drive through Quebec just because, why not? It's a province that I haven't visited up till now, and so I'm visiting. It's not too far out of my way, and I got the time, so yeah, and I'll probably just talk a little bit about the history of Quebec then. How it was founded, how it entered Confederation, and what it's like today as an English speaker. So Quebec was one of the first settlements in North America when Jacques Cartier came over with the king's permission to make a permanent settlement in Nouvelle-France, or quite literally New France. He did it in 1609, making it the first permanent settlement in North America, I believe. Just need to turn here and make sure I'm going the right way. So it was founded as a fur trading outpost, and for the next century and a half, it kind of grew into a major fur trading colony / lumber colony for French ships. And, okay, I'm just gonna make sure I'm going the right way. Charleville, that's where I want to go, and then Gatineau. It was a French crown colony, and, it was a French Okay, that dog keeps throwing me off. It's, barking, so, we're gonna move past it. Where was I? French crown colony. The fortress of Louisbourg was built in this time in the French colony of Acadia, and it was kind of fortified against English invasion from the sea. However, the British also have the ability to travel on land, so that didn't end up working very well. As I mentioned previously, there was a lot of conflict with the English colonies in North America, and a conflict started in 1749 between when a British raiding party led by one Lieutenant George Washington entered New France and tried to just was raiding, and this kicked off a whole a whole war between England and France and a whole bunch of things. It started it kind of got enveloped into the 7 Years' War, and the 7 Years' War was kind of where Canada was, or what would become Canada, was decided on whether we'd be French speaking for all time or English speaking for all time. And there was only one single battle that took place in the 7 Years' War in Canada, and that would be the Battle of Abraham Plains. Now, previously there had been battles in the Fortress of Louisbourg, which fell to the British in 1758, as well as the province of Acadia was seized by the British at this point, and New France was the last Montreal was kind of the last French outpost in North America at this point. And there were two generals. There was General James Wolfe, who led the British side, and General Montcalm, who led the French side. And the battle took place at the Battle of Abraham Plains, which is kind of just to the south of Montreal. The British, basically, the French didn't think that the British could climb the cliffs near Abraham Plains without them noticing, and the British went, haha, we'll see you in a few minutes, and the British climbed the unclimbable cliffs. and so we're already right on the Battle of Abraham Plains by the time that the French found out. And there was a lot that went wrong on both sides. Like, the battle itself was only about 15 minutes long. And the French had superior numbers, but they were also really disorganized. And so they kind of marched out in large columns that the British, while the British spread out a bit further. And so the British were actually able to fire into the columns as they exited, as they entered the field of battle. General Montcalm was hit by a stray bullet and died the next day. And General Wolfe, he was hit by a stray bullet himself and died a few hours later. So both generals are now dead, and the leadership in Quebec is now dead, and Montreal surrenders the next day to the British. Now, which leads us to, now this is in 1759, and in 1761, the colonies of Acadia and New France are officially handed over to the British. So that's how Britain got control of Quebec. It was through conquest. Now, you have a lot of very unhappy French Catholics who are now under the rule of an Anglican king. In Britain, they're mortal enemies. They hate them. So, there's a lot of tension, especially since Scottish and English colonists are now moving into Quebec, and there's a lot of religious tension. And so, recognizing that Quebec had its own unique culture and language, the British issued the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which basically granted Quebec and the Charter of Colonization a series of rights that would not be infringed. Basically, the right to have their own language, the right to have their own culture, the right to have their own religion. These are big things in French history. And this, as I've mentioned previously, pissed off the Americans and the 13 colonies, who felt like they didn't get anything from a war with France that they had helped. They feel that they had helped the British on, even though it was the British who were defending them for most of the war. But yeah, this was one of the things that was a tension for the American Revolution, and the rest is history. Quebec sided with the British during the American Revolution and managed to stay a colony of Britain's when that was over. And so, yeah, I've kind of covered more and more about Quebec and Ontario in a previous video. I'm just trying to think. Quebec was fairly religious right up until the 1960s, when a whole secularist movement began to appear, and there was also a terrorist party that appeared in Quebec around that time, that called the Parti Libération du Québec, literally the People's Liberation of Quebec Party, or Party of Liberation for the People, or I don't know how that translates. It's and it's called the PLQ crisis. And so in the 70s, Prime Minister Trudeau is Prime Minister. He's actually a member of Parliament for Montreal-Papineau, which is in Quebec. And basically in October of 1970, a Canadian and British diplomat are both captured by the PLQ. They're kidnapped right off the street and later executed by the PLQ. And so in response to this, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, he invokes the War Measures Act, which had only ever been invoked twice in Canadian history at that point, and both during wartime. So he's the first Prime Minister to invoke this during peacetime, and basically imposes martial law on Quebec and Ontario. He sends the army in, he arrests people right off the street. He essentially turns Quebec into a police state for the better part of a month and a half, where the RCMP, the military, and are just like kind of going around arresting people and holding them without trial. Obviously, this is not this is not great, and Parliament eventually forces Prime Minister Trudeau to lift the cancel the War Measures Act, and this was a major push. However, this was a pretty heavy-handed approach that really inflamed tensions in between the Quebecois and the Canadian and the rest of Canada, because their language was they were underrepresented in terms of language. They were outnumbered in terms of culture from the other 9 provinces, and they didn't feel like they had much of a voice after this. So there were a couple of independence referendums in 1984 and 1996, both of which were defeated by the people. And but to this day, there remains a national party called the Bloc Québécois, who kind of fight for Quebec sovereignty. Not necessarily independence these days, but more sovereignty of a nation within a nation. So yeah, obviously, I'm trying to be careful with commenting on this too much, since I am technically an outsider to this discussion as an Anglophone from Western Canada. But yeah, it's just really interesting because obviously Quebec is a huge part of Canada. It's the second most powerful economy, but it also takes a lot of equalization money from the West, which is kind of upsetting. Equalization money, by the way, is just payments made from richer provinces to provinces who need a bit of help. The Maritimes often get a lot of equalization payments because they have a lower standard of living there. And, in a country, you want all your citizens to have equal access to healthcare. And so equalization helps with that. However, that kind of also takes money from other provinces that make that money. So it's just a kind of an interesting and slightly hard topic to discuss. Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to give a quick very brief history of Quebec history and Canadian history. It was important in the fur trade. It was important to the French crown. In fact, you might argue, kind of thinking back to how that the last remnants of the French crown are actually located within Canada, because we still use parts of the French royal coat of arms as in Canada. And while we do have a British king, I almost said queen, but it is a king these days. I miss Liz. But yeah, we have a British king, but we still have parts of the French royal crest of arms on the colony of in Quebec and on the coat of arms in Canada. So, in an interesting thing, while the French did away with their monarchy in the late 18th century and the mid 19th century, kind of the last bits of the French monarchy exist within Canada still, and which kind of makes it an interesting line that all the way to the 10th century, to the Capet dynasty, even though we're British now. But anyways, and as it happens, I did not plan this, but the French, this video happens to be about the length of time that the Battle of Abraham Plains happened on. And I hope you enjoyed, and au revoir.